Hello, Leafs Nation, and welcome to another midweek edition of Sunday Morning Manager. This time we actually had genuine technical problems. I had a massive Ethernet cable failure, so we were unable to do a show on Sunday, and due to scheduling conflict, we couldn't get anything done until Sunday. But at least this time, it's actually a legitimate problem as opposed to me proving idiot-proof software not idiot-proof.
Hey! See, we're not totally incompetent.
No, not entirely. So anyways, then we're just going to jump right into things here, and we're going to start with something that a viewer actually sent us. This goes right back to a trade rumor that Heffy actually broke back in the summer. Paul Stastny, a Leaf, yay or nay? And if so, would he work?
Well, this one was broken to me by someone who had sources in the media. A couple of radio stations were talking about this back in the day. Right now, I think that ship has sailed because we're in the midst of an 8-win season in the first 11 games, and Colorado needs all the help they can get. But I think that Paul Stastny would really work anywhere. Would he work here? Definitely. We need a top-line center. I'm not convinced that Tim Connolly is that guy. But, I really don't think that's going to happen at this point.
No, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen over the summer, most likely on draft day, if it was going to happen at all. Now, this isn't to say that it can't happen. I mean, if Colorado suddenly goes in the tank and they try to start dumping salary again, then it's a possibility, but right now it's just not going to happen. They're just playing too well. Like you said, would he fit in Toronto? Absolutely he would. He's a young center, he's very talented, so he'd work, but, he's just not going to come here. Sorry, folks.
All right, so moving on. Sev, this one's for you. Cody Franson. What did you make of his comments, and do you think he's part of the long-term plan in Toronto?
Well, for one, I'm glad he was upset that he wasn't playing, because, let's face it, when he was brought here as a young defenseman, the idea, as it looked at the time, was he was going to be part of the young rebuild, and of course everybody suddenly got their hopes up that Mike Komisarek was going to very quietly be shushed aside. So I was glad that he was upset that he wasn't playing, because it shows that he actually wants to be here, he wants to show his stuff, and he wants to be part of the team. Now, is he part of the bigger plan going forward? At this moment, it's hard to say. I think, more than anything, Franson is a victim of Jake Gardiner, who just played too well to be sent back down to the Marlies. I said this before. I thought he was going to the Marlies. I thought he'd be better served on the Marlies, but he's shown that he can play in the National Hockey League, and unfortunately, Franson doesn't have a two-way contract, so they can't send him down there, so he's kind of stuck in the press box. So now it sort of becomes, well, is he going to be part of a trade? And of course, Tyler Bozak's name keeps coming up. I think it's a possibility, if the right deal came along. Unfortunately, it's hard to say for certain, because really I have no idea what they would be trading for or who they could be trading for at this point.
Well, I think a lot of people kind of raised the specter of the Paul Stastny deal, but I think, yeah, that one is sailed, like we said. But yeah, I don't know why Toronto would trade this guy. I mean, yes, he's been a victim of Jake Gardiner, and yes, they have great depth on the defense. They say they like that depth, but at the same time, we have about 8 eligible NHL caliber defensemen, one of whom is playing in the Marlies right now, and Keith Ollie. So, I mean, it's just a little strange that we traded for this guy in the offseason. He was supposed to be the cornerstone of the trade. He was supposed to be this great guy, and now all of a sudden he's not playing. So I really don't know what to make of this situation, and, hopefully they can find a place for him. Maybe they can move Komisarek, but that guy's got a beast of a contract and is not playing up to it. So
now we said the same thing about Jason Blake. There's always that possibility. I'm not discounting it.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about Komisarek, at least this season, is while the rest of the Leafs have upped their play, he hasn't really lost us any games single-handedly yet. So, there's that.
This is very true. All right, and moving on, the Montreal Canadiens. They've come on a bit of late, but really, they've had a really bad start to the regular season. Now, there was a lot of calls for Jacques Martin to be fired. Of course, he was not, an assistant coach was, and Pierre Gauthier has taken quite a bit of heat over how he handled things. Do we blame Jacques Martin solely for this?
Well, this one's a toughie because, I mean, Montreal has virtually the same team that they made the playoffs with last year, and the same coach, and the same coaching staff, and everything. So, I'm always hesitant to blame the coaches, but when you have a team that, you know, made the playoffs, is good enough to make the playoffs, everyone had picked to make the playoffs, and they come out of the gate and they lose, you know, 5, 6, 7 straight, then, I mean, there's one guy holding the bag, and that's the coach. I mean, it's inconceivable to me that every single player on that roster suddenly became bums.
No, but you know what? As you said, this is the same team that made the playoffs last year. But the way I see things, this is the same type of team that Montreal has been putting on the ice for almost the last 20 years now. It's always been the same style of team. We have our goaltender. You know, he's our rock. He's our base. He's the guy who's going to carry the load a lot of nights. We have a group of smallish, fast forwards, and we have a sort of team concept defense. You know, you look at the Montreal Canadiens, and how do they win games? You get a couple of goals early, and then you hold on for dear life. You know, your offense is catered around the power play and around neutral zone turnovers. When the system works, it's great. I saw this for 7 years in Ottawa, okay? When it works, it's fantastic. The problem is when it doesn't work, you fall flat on your face. And what's happening right now in Montreal is it's not one thing, it's an accumulation of various things that Montreal has simply not addressed.
Yes, I definitely think that, you know, Carey Price has been one of those goaltenders who has hot years and then he has low years. And unfortunately for Montreal, this is not one of his hot years. I mean, he's been decent, but you're right. I mean, he's not the type of guy who's a Martin Brodeur who you can center your entire team around and he's going to single-handedly win you the Stanley Cup.
No, and when you look at their forwards, nobody's doing the work. You know, there's nothing there that we haven't seen before. I mean, do we need to bring up Gomez's contract again? You know, do we need to bring up Gianta and Camilleri and their production? Do we need to bring up, you know, the lack of secondary offense? You know, it's the same story over and over again in Montreal. And as you said, you know, sooner or later it comes back to the coach, but at the same time, these are the players that he's been stuck with. And you know what? If you're going to fire the coach at this point, you might as well can the GM. You might as well trade as many or buy out as many of these players as you can as well and start from scratch, because this is a problem that has been building for years in Montreal, and if they're going to fire one person, they might as well just clean house.
So you're saying it's time for a rebuild in Montreal?
I'm not saying they need to rebuild. I'm saying if they're going to make one major change, they might as well make them all, because it's not one problem in Montreal. It's a collection of them that need to be addressed, so they just can't do one and expect everything else to suddenly work out.
Definitely. Okay, well, that's our show for this week. Thanks to everybody for watching. I'm Heffiewiggle, and this is
Sev.
We'll see you next week.